On this special inaugural edition of the Correspondents, President Donald Trump promises big changes for the United States in his first 100 days in office. We'll take a look at what's in store for the country. We'll also take a look beyond our borders at the shape of foreign policy and American influence under a Trump administration. And a look back at President Obama's 8 years in the White House, the good, the bad, and the stuff in between. And welcome to the Correspondents on Voice of America. I'm Arcega in Washington. Well, this is the day we say goodbye to one president and usher in a new one. And as of today, it is officially President Donald Trump, the billionaire candidate who has managed to beat all expectations to become the country's 45th president, promises to bring big league changes to America. But President Trump may find it more difficult than expected to make those changes in his first 100 days in office. White House correspondent Mary Alice Salinas has our report.
President-elect Donald Trump has promised bold steps during his first 100 days to bring change to America. Steps he says will restore law and order, clean up Washington, and most of all, protect the American worker. He's promised massive spending on infrastructure to help create jobs. He's also called for term limits for congressional members and has promised to build a wall along the southern border with Mexico. But he'll quickly bump up against the reality of Washington politics and government. There's disagreement about some of Trump's plans, even within his own Republican Party, including on infrastructure.
That's not something that Republicans in Congress are going to want to spend significant amounts of money on without offsets.
Repealing the Affordable Care Act, or so-called Obamacare, could go smoothly, but replacing it will not. Trump can swiftly unravel actions Obama took using presidential powers, but rolling back regulations, as he's promised, will take time.
And to talk to us about campaign promises versus the cold reality of Washington, I'm joined in our studio by VOA White House correspondent Cindy Saine, along with VOA national correspondent Jim Malone. I thank you both for joining us today. It's a very busy day. So, Jim, I'm going to start with you. A lot of ambitious campaign promises made by Donald Trump. How much can he realistically accomplish in his first 100 days?
Potentially, we could be looking at some significant change fairly quickly. And the main reason is that Trump comes into office with Republican control of the Congress, and they are eager to get going on things like tax cuts, changing the health care system, repealing and replacing the Obamacare law, and also moving ahead on other changes regarding regulations and reducing the size of government. I think there's significant potential here to make some moves in the first 100 days or so. But there's the question of what kind of a leader will Donald Trump be? Even during the transition, we saw at times divisive, at times aspirational. So there's some work to be done.
We're still waiting for the presidential pivot, aren't we? But Cindy, incoming administrations, as you know, like to get as much done as they can in the first 100 days because that's typically when they have momentum. That's when they have the popularity. But given Trump's declining popularity level, what is it, 37, 40%? Does he actually have a mandate? Can he get things done?
Well, that's a good question, Bill. And as Jim said, I think one of the first things he'll probably turn to is health care, which was so important to his voters to repeal and replace, as they call it, Obamacare, former President Obama's signature issue. So President Trump has said that he wants health care for every American. And even some lawmakers on Capitol Hill have said, what exactly does that mean? Does he mean access, or does he mean actual insurance for every American? So that's going to be one of the first things that we see. How does this play out?
And Jim, repealing Obamacare does carry its own political perils, doesn't it? I mean, there's an additional 20 million Americans who now have health insurance that could lose it.
Look, for a long time, the mantra was when the Republicans come in with a Republican president on day one, we're going to get rid of this law. All of a sudden, that has changed a bit now. Killing it's the easy part. What do you replace it with? And now the prospect is for a long, potentially complicated and drawn out process of coming up with a replacement. It's odd that Republicans really haven't fixated on a replacement. they've been in opposition to the law for 6 years. I mean, that is a little bit of an odd point. And the other thing here is Trump likes aspects of the law, and as Cindy said, has talked about broadening it out for everybody. How you accomplish that with a kind of cutting back of the federal government's role, which is what the Republicans want to do in Congress, I think there's a great potential here for a divide between Trump and the Republicans in Congress.
And Cindy, this is one area where President Trump is definitely going to need support from Democrats who, by the way, on Inauguration Day, some 50 of them decided to boycott.
That's right, Mill. And it came down to statements made by a congressman from Georgia and a civil rights icon, John Lewis, who had said that he was not going to attend the inauguration because he didn't think that President Trump was legitimately elected because of Russian interference in the U.S. elections. And this prompted President Trump to fire off some tweets against John Lewis, saying he was all talk and no action, which really upset a lot of Democrats in the House, particularly African Americans, but a lot of others as well. So this is something that has kind of got him off to a bad start with Democrats in the House. And they would be people, as you say, that he would need if he wants to start infrastructure projects. President Trump has said our infrastructure needs a lot of help. A lot of Democrats would agree with him on that.
Yeah, and Jim, that's kind of a tough go for Donald Trump right now because it looks like, I mean, he even admits himself that the biggest problem that we face in this country is a division. I mean, does he need to get rid of his Twitter account because it seems to ratchet up the divisions in this country every time he says something disparaging about it?
He seems pretty committed to using that. He says the mainstream press is dishonest. So he is going to continue to use Twitter and other mechanisms to communicate, primarily to his base. And I think that's an issue moving forward. Traditionally, presidential inaugurations are a moment in time where the country can come together, be open-minded about a new chief executive coming into power. But as we pointed out with the polling, he comes into office in a relatively weaker position than other recent presidents. And even though he's brought in on a wave of change and aspirations for change, there's still a great desire among some to see what he'll do about trying to heal the country. So balancing those two objectives is going to be very important moving forward.
And Cindy, Donald Trump comes into office at war also with the media. I mean, his first news conference of the year did not turn out so well. He ended up not answering some questions from some media outlets, even called CNN fake news. He's going to need the media at some point. How does he repair that relationship, and how do you think your coverage is going to be? I mean, once you start covering Donald Trump, is that going to be challenging for you?
Well, there's still a lot of questions right now, Mill. I work in the White House every day and have been used to going to the daily on-camera briefings, which, as outgoing Press Secretary Josh Earnest pointed out, is a unique feature of American democracy, that our president has reporters following him. If he goes out in the evening, takes his wife out for dinner or whatever, there's a motorcade with reporters following, in case something should happen to him or her, or in case, just to see who the president is meeting with and all that sort of thing. So we've been used to that, and now the new press secretary, Sean Spicer, has said that they're considering moving reporters in the briefings out of the White House itself into a nearby White House conference center, saying that they actually want to include more people, bloggers, social media people, and whatever.
And maybe his supporters, like we saw in his first press conference, applauding.
Right. Of course, those of us at the White House say this is unique, and we want to keep that access of being right there, able to monitor the president on site.
Jim, there's quite a number of challenges facing this new president. I mean, part of it as well is the spat that he's got himself into with the intelligence community. Yes. How critical is healing that divide between the president and his intelligence?
In the spirit of your question, I'm going to turn things around a little bit.
Okay.
I think if you come into power as an agent of change, anything is on the table. So we are looking in some ways through the lens of the Washington establishment, that he will need to adhere and adjust. He's shown no signs of doing that, and his base of support seems to be loyal with him. So the whole idea that he's going to have to change and operate differently, I think that's a bit of a myth right now. I think he's calling the shots for now. And for example, Twitter can be weaponized. He's shown it can be, but it could turn out to be a double-edged sword at some point. As long as people are listening, and as long as they see he has the power, that's going to be an effective means of communication and cajoling. But as soon as it doesn't, then we may have a different
So,
conversation.
Cindy, do you agree? Clean slate. This is a new set of a completely different administration that we're looking
Yes,
at.
I think Jim is right. And the fact that if you would ask Donald Trump's millions of supporters throughout the country, they would say, you can't shake up Washington enough.
This is
what they've
what we
been
need to do.
wanting. So,
Okay.
yeah, we may see changes, some
We
of them
shall
good.
see. It's a very fascinating conversation. I wish I had another 30 minutes with you guys. But thank you, Jim and Cindy. Time now for a short break. When we come back, a look beyond our borders and America's role in the world. We'll discuss the future of U.S. foreign policy and its implications for our international neighbors. This is the Correspondents on Voice of America.